Boomy, you wake up slowly. Your eyes come into focus, and you take a glance at your surroundings. You're in some sort of examination room, you can tell that immediately. There's medical equipment kind of all over the place, although it's not something that you are very familiar with. You look down, and you're wearing some kind of white jumpsuit, and it has some sort of black number on the chest that you can't really read because it's actually kind of dark in this room. There's an overhead exam light in your face. You hear some voices, and you see in the room there are 3 figures, one in the shadows you can hardly see, but 2 are closer. One is a male, and the other's a female. They look to be around the same age, but the male is talking to the female. They look to be roughly like humans. They have ridges on their foreheads, and you can't really identify what species they are. It's at that point you start to move because this is actually a very uncomfortable bed, and you see that you are actually strapped down. 2 straps on your wrist tying you to the bed, and then a strap covering your ankles that just makes it so you can't really move at all.
Have they noticed me waking up?
They haven't yet. They're talking off to the side.
Can we hear what they're saying?
It's low. They're talking about the amount or the frequency. They keep talking about the using higher frequency or using more. That's what they keep saying. And then the male turns and he notices you're awake and he says, "Oh, good. Well, let's do a brief interview and let's see how our efforts panned out, shall we?" And he says, Jala, come on." And as the male approaches, you see he's wearing it's like a long white jacket and then, some neutral colored scrubs underneath. But he has a kind of balding hair, and you still can't make out what species he is. He looks like he's probably middle-aged or a little older. But the woman he's referred to as Jala appears to be some sort of assistant. She has her hair tightly pulled back into a bun, and she's wearing like a small cap. She has older, wrinkled skin, so you have a feeling of the 2 of them, she's probably a bit older. But she gives you a cold gaze and reaches over to the side to grab some sort of mechanical device, and she starts scanning you.
What's the last thing I remember before waking up here?
Yeah, the last thing you remember was you were actually on a shuttle. You just left the creature that you had all saved, helping with the delivery. You were picked up by a shuttle that was going to take you back to the station. And you remember sitting in the shuttle, and everyone from, that was on the creature, which would be Commander Ebison, Dial, and Kaluna were on the shuttle with you, and you just closed your eyes for just a minute because the whole affair was pretty exhausting. And then you open your eyes and you're here.
You're just going to look around a little confused for a second, and you're just going to look at them like, where am I?
And the male, he looks at you and he says, "Well, that's just the best place to begin, I guess. So tell me, what do you remember?"
Aboard a shuttle. We're coming back to the starbase after helping a alien organism give birth.
And he sighs. "Jala, make a note. Apparently the last treatment didn't work. We could potentially try again to up the current or the frequency to see if that would make a change. However, the patient is so close to the date of digitation that I hesitate to bother. That's quite unfortunate. It would have been really helpful to have your memory patterns at a more normal frequency, but such is life. Do you remember anything about the crime?"
No. What crime? What?
Again, so unfortunate. Well, maybe we'll find time for another treatment.
What species are you?
And he sighs. "Oh dear. Well, I guess it's possible that your delusion is real, or at least as far as you can tell. Jala, make a note again. It appears as though the patient has lost even more memory, or at least has convinced himself of such." my dear friend, if you are putting on a show, your time is quickly running out. Now would be the time to confess, at least to clear your conscience.
Confess about what? What's going on?
Yes. Well, and he gestures to the guy in the shadows who you couldn't really make out, and he says, Hammond, I think we're done with this one. If you can give me the next patient down the block, we'll continue treatments with them. And he starts to undo some of the straps, and he says, well, my good friend, if we don't meet again, I will be sure to walk in on your digitation.
Excuse me, digitation? What is happening?
And the guy actually just turns around and walks away, doesn't even answer you at all, leaving the female to remove the restraints around your legs. As the guy comes out of the shadows, this guy looks to be the same species. He's got like the same ridges on his forehead, but he's wearing more utilitarian dress. Like he's actually got what looks almost like padded armor, and he's carrying what looks like a long black stick. And as he walks in, you don't really know where you know this stick from, but you know what it is. It's called a sick stick, where if he hits you with it and presses a button, like a control button on the side, it will make you violently ill. And you know this guy, whose name is Hammond, has actually used it on you and others before as sort of a way of non-lethal, a way to stop you non-lethally. And you know that if he were to shock you with it, you'd be violently ill for at least a day, throwing up, having diarrhea, unable to keep any food down. And it's actually quite terrible. And as you're looking at the stick, you notice that Hammond has kind of started to drag you off the bed and push you towards the door.
Now, I'll comply. While that's happening, though, I'm going to try and see if I can just get any stray, aberrant thoughts from anyone.
What's odd is for the first time really in your entire life, you're not picking up anything at all. Nothing. Nothing from Hammond, who's right next to you. Nothing from the nurse, who is also next to you. Nothing from the area. Not one thing at all.
Nothing in my surroundings.
Nope.
Okay. Now, I'll just follow along.
And Hammond kind of gives you a shove as you're walking out of the room, and he says, now, today's your last day. Don't want you to get any ideas. Certainly not going to go easier on you today. I expect you to be in peak behavior. Not going to have any problems, am I?
I don't assume so. I'm just confused on what's happening.
Yeah, of course you are. They'll digitize you if you walk in the room or if I have to carry you.
Is that a form of transportation?
And as he leads you further down out of the room into a hallway, it's a long hallway in front of you, and you see there are several cells on each side of the hallway as you continue down. Now, some of the cells you can actually see into. They have larger, like thick glass openings into the cells, and some of them on the other side have mostly opaque glass where you can only see the outline form of people in the cells. But as you walk down, you hear people crying, some people, screaming about how they shouldn't be there at all. And as you're being pushed down the hallway by Hammond, he answers your question. And he says, I've heard that being digitized is one of the most painful experiences a person could go through. I'm really curious how you're going to handle it.
Looks around for a second as he's walking. He's like, right, sure, painful. Is it a form of teleportation? What is it?
He laughs. Yeah, we've answered this question many times. Yeah, what'll happen to you is they'll make a copy of your memory engrams and store it into a computer. And what happens is it kills you. But hey, at least there's a copy of your mind on the computer. Some see that as some kind of mercy. I'd say for a murderer like you, they should just kill you.
Murderer? What's my name?
He said, you're prisoner 135 as far as I care. And as you're walking down towards the cell, like a door opens, you pass 2 other cells, and as you look inside, you see Kaluna and you see Dial. Kaluna and Dial, you are just coming to inside of your own cells, and you notice Boomy being led past you with this guard.
Immediately try to establish a connection with them.
You don't get anything.
Okay. Very confused look on his face as he's trying to communicate, but yeah, he'll just go into his cell.
And Dial and Kaluna, what's interesting is you can barely see each other because in the curve of this hallway, you can sort of see over and you can see some motion. But as the two of you saw Boomy walk by, he doesn't exactly look like Boomy. He still looks, humanoid, but he's got these ridges on his forehead, which are the same as the guard who was leading him to his cell. And Boomy just got shoved in, and the guard closes the door, and he starts twirling his stick and humming as he walks away.
So just to clarify a point here, the doors themselves are solid. They aren't like barred or anything like that. Like they are solid doors.
Yeah, they're solid door, and there are glass openings probably in the top third.
Okay. And let me make sure I have this correct. I'm in my own cell, and across from me is Dial, or are they to my right or my left?
So Dial is to your left, and Boomy is to your right.
All right then. What are the interiors like?
It's a great question. Let's actually transition into the interior of yours.
Oh, why is
Padded cell.
that?
Basically a large padded cell. You don't even have a bed. There's ambient light being projected from just over the door. So like the ceiling of the room you're in is actually padded as well.
Right. I mean, from the ambient noise that I'm hearing, it sounds like if I were to shout loud enough that someone would hear me.
Yeah, definitely. Someone could hear you. In fact, you're hearing people from other cells that are, some guy's talking about how he doesn't belong there at all, and one person's talking to himself about, needs to go get groceries or he needs to get food, he needs to eat. It doesn't sound like he's starving. He's actually going through like a checklist of things he needs to buy in his cell. And someone's crying, further down the hallway.
So I'm going to try and raise my voice to get Boomy's attention. And it's just going to be a very short and quick, "Hey, Boomy, are you there?" until he answers.
And Boomy, you can easily hear Kaluna.
Yes, I'm here. Confused as all hell, but I'm here.
Good, that makes 2 of us. What about you, Dr. Dial? Can you hear me?
I can hear you. What is happening?
I wish I knew. I saw Boomy getting taken from somewhere. What have you been able to pick up so far?
Not quite sure. Apparently I'm a murderer and I'm gonna be sentenced to death here soon.
Well, we can't have that now, can we? Though, if I were to make a guess, it's based on the fact that you don't look like yourself, or at least you didn't when you passed my cell.
Might explain why I can't sense anyone's thoughts, but
Not even mine?
no. The last thing I remember was on the shuttle. It was nodding off for a nice little nap.
So, I guess that's now a question for GM Josh. What does the last thing Kalula remember?
Kaluna remembers the same thing as Boomy. You were all on a shuttle headed back to the station. Boomy had just closed his eyes for a minute, and then you leaned back in your chair. Ebison was piloting the shuttle back to the station. You leaned back in your chair, and maybe from a long blink, you open your eyes and you found yourself here. And as you're thinking about this, Kaluna, you go to rub your hair, or push the hair out of your face, and as you go to do that, you realize it's not your hair. Actually, it's a bit longer than you remember, and it's a very different texture. And actually, your ears are rounded. They're not pointed like they were before. And you feel ridges on your forehead, which would match what you saw on Boomy and the guard as well.
So it occurs to me that there are 2 possibilities, Boomy and Dial. Either we are sharing a hallucination, we have been abducted by some aliens that for some reason are intent on seeing us punished for something, or, and this is the long shot, we actually have been hallucinating the past however many years we've been on the station.
Uh,
Hey, that last one is a joke. Please don't take that one seriously.
I was gonna say, I'm thinking the last one is the least likely to be true.
We need to figure out where we are and what these people are doing. What was it they were doing to you, Boomy? Do you remember?
I remember waking up on a table and then they were asking me some. No, I asked them a couple of questions and they were unsatisfied with the results.
But they didn't give you answers to those questions, I'm guessing.
Not particularly, no. I tried to reach out to just to see if there's any thought patterns floating around there, but nothing. If that's the case, I am inclined to believe that we're in some type of shared hallucination.
Alright, so +1 for the shared hallucination.
Shared hallucination, or somehow our minds have been transferred.
They did mention something called a digitization. It's apparently they copy your memory engrams into a computer while the original body is destroyed.
That just seems like a waste. Why would they do that?
Apparently it's their form of capital punishment.
Right, but I guess I'm not understanding why would they even bother saving the brain pattern then? What value is there?
Probably a belief of their... Could be a belief of their culture. It could be a way to retain knowledge. Everyone has a useful, I'm just annoyed that I can't enter anyone's mind, because if I had my mental powers, that guard wouldn't be so talkative. He'd be very compliant.
Well, as I don't appear to have anything in the way of a means out of this cell, short of... I don't even think throwing myself at the walls would get their attention, but I think we need to wait and see what our captors have in store for us, unless any of you have a non-padded cell that you see a way out of.
Boomy, just look around for a second.
Boomy, as you look around in your cell is a little darker than the others, and in fact there's corners that are just almost in total shadow. But as you look around your room, you realize you are not alone in your cell. You see the huddled figure, like this person is crouched in the corner and actually hugging their knees close to their chest. And as you get a little closer, you can tell it looks like a young teenage female. She has long dark hair. You can't really make out much details from her face though.
Hello.
She raises her head a little bit and looks at you cautiously. She has the ridges on her forehead as well. But you still can't make out many details because she's completely in the shadows.
It's okay. Are you okay?
She stands up as you get closer and she starts to recoil even further into the corner. But you immediately recognize the face, although it's much older than the last time you saw this face. It looks like an older version of Mina.
I'm just gonna stay where I am. I'll just look at her for a second. Like, what's your name?
And she doesn't answer, but you notice as you've gotten closer that she's actually bitten her fingernails down to the point to where all of her fingers are bleeding.
I'm just gonna have a grimaced expression. My name's Boomy. Nice to meet you.
And as you get closer, you can tell around
Charlie's
her
not moving
temples.
Closer.
Oh, I'm
He's
sorry.
staying still.
As you got closer before, you said you stopped, but you can see that she has shaved spots around her temples, and actually what looks like a small rubber implant on her neck. And as you're looking at that, you touch your own neck and realize you have the same implant. It's about the size of a quarter.
How does it feel if I tug on it?
It feels
Like-
rubber. And actually, you notice it's positioned over one of your carotid arteries on your neck. But it's very much attached.
It seems we have a fun implant along our neck on the carotid artery. I'd recommend not trying to pull it out.
Form of
You-
control mechanism, perhaps?
That, or it's used to deliver medicine directly into the cardiovascular system.
Well, there's much better veins than that one, but interesting.
Given the fact that we apparently don't seem to be our species, maybe it's something more efficient for them.
Do I have an occupant in my room, or is it just Boomy that has a guest?
It's just Boomy.
Is this
No,
gonna sit?
Boomy. I don't have anyone in my cell, at least that I'm aware of. I'd recommend trying to get what you can out of her.
How about you dial anyone in there?
Tal, you are by yourself.
I am all by my lonesome over here.
Boomy's just really gonna try for a second just to try and... The last thing he remembers is being on the ship.
Yeah, on the
Closing his
shuttle.
eyes. He's gonna keep that mental image in his head, and he's just gonna try and reach out to anyone aboard the shuttle.
And you don't get a
Right.
thing.
Well, I know I didn't imagine my life in some hallucination. I know who I am, and I'm not whatever this person I'm currently in body of. I know my wife, I know my children, and I know my grandchildren.
Do you think we're on a planet, or do you think that we are somewhere in space?
I think we're still on the shuttle. But our minds have been pulled somewhere else, or something's being projected into our heads. The fact that I can't access any of my telepathic abilities.
Means that we're somehow disconnected from our original bodies.
We don't happen to have a changeling that serves aboard the station, do we?
I think there's one in Ward 9.
A founder type one, or a cameloid?
I think a Cameloid, if I remember correctly. She's the shift leader for Alpha Shift.
Yeah. I was hoping this would have been in an incident where we encountered some spatial anomaly and we got trapped in a weird version of the link. I read about that report from a Dr. Basher.
Sheer.
Bashir, but yeah, I think I know the report you're talking about.
Yeah.
This is strange. And it's weird that it seems to be almost as if we are here being projected, but I wonder how much is bits and pieces of our reality.
Well, I don't know how much you all can see outside of your cell, but I'm going to take a look and see if I notice anybody that seems familiar. And then, yeah, I'm going to do my best to look out of my cell and see if I can see anybody that might look like a station personnel I'm familiar with.
And as you look out your cell, you see across from you, Cluna. It's a figure that is walking back and forth, so you're seeing them for just a moment, and then they walk out of frame. And what you're seeing through is that top third of the door that's the glass into their cell, and it looks like they're in a very similar padded cell to yours. But as the person walks by, you catch just a glimpse, and you realize it looks just like Deleuze. However, he's got the ridges on his forehead as well. But as he walks by, he says, "Nope, nope, can't do that, can't do that, nope, can't do that right, can't do this right. Always a disappointment, always a disappointment. Doesn't matter what I do, doesn't matter, doesn't matter." And he's just walking back and forth.
All right, so I report my findings to the others, and I say, I see Deleuze across from me. He seems to be lost in his own thoughts, to put it nicely.
All right, there's another person from the station. Strange.
And that's when you hear the whistling, which kind of broadcasts Hammond. It's getting louder and louder as Hammond is walking down the hallway. And he's doing that thing where he's taking his stick. He'll do that sometimes in prison cells, or like banging on the door. He's just doing that to, I guess, annoy people as much as possible, but you're hearing him walking down the hallway.
Does he look familiar, or does he have his own unique appearance?
He has a unique appearance. You can't place him anywhere.
Whatever this is, it could be using some of our memories to fill in blanks or try and make us feel more connected to whatever story it's trying to tell us.
That or it's some weird Section 31 mind game. I've read stories about those.
I don't recognize that floor number. Is that some wing on the station?
No, it's something that I once read in a report my sister tried to show me about how the Federation was evil. I didn't retain much of it, but I do remember 31 being important.
No.
But as Hammond makes his way to your cells, Deleuze, or at least the copy that you associate with Deleuze, recoils back to the end of his cell, and he says something that you catch Cluna into the effect of, no, you can't see me. Don't see me. I won't be disappointed. I won't. If I cut up my eyes, you can't see me. And then Hammond turns towards, like in the middle of your cell, so he's kind of standing right in front of your cell, Cluna, and he turns to the three of you and he says, "Well, big day. Digitation day."
No, what's tomorrow?
For you? Nothing. They say that when your mind's in the computer, you might be aware of yourself. Imagine that. Being just formless, your thoughts locked for all eternity in a computer, looped over and over. I could think of worse punishment for killers like you.
Right. Tell me, do you know if there's any, I don't know, interstellar space travel done by this planet?
He laughs. "So is this when you're going to tell me about your Federation and your star or whatever, and how you're really a doctor on a space station? Really, I should be writing this down. I could sell it somewhere."
Well, you're actually mostly right. So good imagination on you.
He looks at you, Cluna, and he says, "What, no news stories from you, princess?"
Well, I figure the last time I told you about the sacred chalice of Re, you blew me off, so I flick him the bird.
He shakes his head. Such a waste. Such a waste. Of course, everybody's really tough until we take them down to that digitation chamber. Be interested to see. Are you going to cry? Are you going to scream? Are you going to beg? Everyone thinks they're brave. But I gotta tell you, once we strap you into that chair, we find out who the real you is.
I have a question for you. What was my profession before murderer?
Beats me.
You don't have anything on record?
Sure, but I don't know why I'd waste my time learning your information.
I would like to see my record.
Sure you would. You could ask the administrator if you'd like.
Excellent, thank you.
That is if you're ready to confess. I'm sure he'd love to hear your confession.
Well, first I would like to look at the record, and then if everything lines up with what I assume is in there, then I'll be more than happy to talk.
Sure. I'll let him know. So are you three ready for your last meal?
And what is it?
The same as it was yesterday. Cafeteria gruel. I hear if you're nice on your last day, they'll give you an extra spice packet.
Oh. Spicy.
He looks at you, Cluna. Of course, nothing extra for you, princess.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's so tragic because it's a wonder anyone can eat it all with having to look at a face like yours. And I make a motion like I'm throwing up, but you get the idea.
He laughs. You know, on your last day, I could make it as miserable as possible. I think that might even be justice for the family that you killed. And he raises his sick stick a little bit and he says, do you remember this? You remember the last time I got you? You were throwing up for a whole week.
I remember you had to come in my cell to do it. But we both know you're too much of a coward to do that.
And he laughs. I'm sure when we strap you down tonight, you're going to be crying.
I don't even give it a response. I just sort of stare at him, I guess, in an angry fashion.
There's a loud buzz, and he says, oh, there you go. Time to eat. And he walks down to the end of the hallway. And there's a moment where you can't see him at all, and then all of your doors and all the doors actually in the hallway open, and people start to slowly file out. And the girl in the corner of your room, Boomy, she starts to edge forward, and she's looking at you with very wide, very red eyes.
Yeah, but I'll just take a step back and move to the side so she can get out without feeling threatened.
And she flattens herself against the wall to try to keep as much space from you as possible while she's watching, and she inches to the door and rushes out.
I'll head on out afterwards and look at Kaluna and Dial.
And Kaluna and Dial... Go ahead.
I guess what I'm curious is if we were to look out of the cell, are there other guards, or is it just everybody seems to be following the motion of going towards this cafeteria?
So wherever Hammond went, he left this hallway, and you notice everyone is leaving the cells and walking in a single direction. So there aren't guards right now in the hallway, but everyone seems to be going the same way.
So looking to Boomy and looking to Dial, I say, you two head to the cafeteria. I'm going to go the opposite direction and see what I can find.
Just be careful.
Will do.
If this wasn't so disturbing, this would be a fascinating experience to document and write up a good report about, but I don't like the fact that they're using people from our mind. As he looks towards where the older Mina ran off to.
Well, the mind is a funny thing, Mr. Boomy, and I'm sure whatever comes out of this, it will be a fascinating report to say all the same.
Right. I think of any of us, you would be the one that knows the most.
Well, it's also why I tried the belligerent tactic, because if you begin to poke holes in the reality that you see, sometimes that has a way of unraveling the whole thing. Though,
True.
if I were to hazard a guess, this digitization process that they keep mentioning, I have a feeling that is what is commonly known as a kick, or sometimes known as a coma inducer. where it's the end of the hallucination and either you kick yourself awake or it gets worse. And unfortunately, there's no way to tell which it'll be.
Is there a way to get around that?
If I had access to certain chemicals, yes. Unfortunately, I seem to be fresh out.
For now, as you said, this place has a strange way of working.
Well, let's not keep our hosts waiting. And very pointedly, I'm going to head down, of course, again, that opposite direction for everybody else is heading. And I'm going to be thinking about very specific people on the station. Like the barista I get the coffee from, one of the nurses whose names I'm forgetting out of character, but in character would remember. Basically people I would see on a daily basis, but maybe have just never learned their name, just to see if their faces pop up.
And as you're walking, because you're walking against the crowd and you see faces passing you, as you're doing that, you don't see any changes, you don't see anyone that you recognize. What you do notice is that they're all the same species, which apparently is the species that you are, at least currently, the ridges on their forehead.
I'll keep going until either I get turned around or until I notice somebody new.
And Dial and Boomy, as you're following the crowd, it appears as though they're all walking to a cafeteria at the end of the hallway. Dial, as you're walking, someone taps on your shoulder.
I'm going to turn and look at him.
And it's a female. She looks a whole lot like Ensign Delphia, but again, ridges on her forehead, although she has a wild, kind of crazy look to her eyes. And her eyes are also very bloodshot. And she looks at you and she says, "Hello, hello. It's me. Do you remember me?"
You vaguely seem familiar. Where would I have met you?
She says, What? You don't remember me? You don't think I'm pretty?
I had said nothing about that.
And she actually starts sobbing a bit. She says, "You don't think I'm pretty, do you?"
Like I said, I've never said anything like that.
She says, "No, we were going to be together. We were. You said we were."
I am not going to say no, but I unfortunately have been having issues recalling memories here lately.
And she says, we were going to have a house on a hill," and she's sobbing. "A house on a hill together."
It does sound nice, especially since I'm up for digitization.
And she immediately stops crying, just like a switch. And she says, "I wonder what we'll have for food today."
It's a very good question.
Cherry pie. Cherry pie is my favorite. I hope it's cherry pie today.
Cherry pie does sound good.
So, Boomy, you are very close to this exchange. I wonder what you're thinking about it.
Boomy is just more or less observing everything. He's kind of getting more interested in how this is all playing out. The fact that it's using whatever this is using memories and images of people we're familiar with for the patients, but leaving the authoritative figures as their own unique appearance. He's more or less just wondering how long the simulation is going to carry on.
And as you're in your thoughts, you bump into a guy, because it's kind of a crowd heading into the cafeteria. And the guy turns around and it's Deleuze, at least the guy that looks like him. And he says, What? What'd I do wrong? Am I going too slowly?"
No, you're fine. You did nothing wrong. It's my mistake. I apologize.
He says, I didn't mean to. I'm trying to get in. Can you just wait your turn?
Certainly. I apologize.
Delphia next to you, Dial, she says, "Don't mind that one. He's crazy."
Oh?
Mhm,
What makes you say that?
He's always talking about cutting people's eyes out.
I mean, that would kind of put a damper on somebody's day.
And she hooks her arm in yours, Dial, and puts her head on your shoulder, and she says, "But not you and me."
Have you managed to make a deal to avoid that?
She says, "What? No, we're going to run away. We're going to have a house together on a hill."
I would love to run away. How are we going to manage to do that, though?
She says, maybe we'll go on one of your spaceships.
That would be nice if they could come and get us.
And Kaluna, as you've made your way away from the crowd of people, you notice you've reached a large metal door that appears to have closed. It's a double door that's closed and it stopped your progress. And as you get closer, you notice there's a speaker above the door. And the speaker comes on and it sounds like Ham, and he's saying, "You're going to want to turn around, Princess."
I don't. I remain where I am before the door.
He says, "I'll give you one last chance. You can walk into the cafeteria, or we'll drop you there."
I'm going for the belligerent angle, so I think I, again, do nothing but stare at the speaker.
And the door opens, and Hammond walks out. Only this time he's walking out with 3 other guards. They're all wearing the black suit that he's wearing, so it looks like some kind of padded armor, and they're all carrying 6 sticks. And Hammond walks forward, and he's got a greasy smile. He's got lots of yellow, chipped teeth, and he says, "Princess, it's your special day. I'm going to give you one more chance."
I think I just cross my arms and stare at him.
He looks to his other guards, and they kind of laugh, and he advances on you, presses a button, and the 6 stick is like a hum as it energizes. And he goes to jab you with it, and as he strikes you in the chest, Kaluna, you bend over and vomit. It's the sickest that you have ever felt.
Now, when you say I vomit, what is it I vomit? Is it just stomach bile? Is it actual food? You know, I know this is kind of grisly details, but it's very important for a hallucination.
It's mostly bile. There's chunks of something, but you can't really tell what it is. But you immediately collapse to your knees.
All right. So, as I'm doubled over heaving, I think I make a point to get a little on Mr. Stabby's shoes, just to see what he does.
It doesn't seem to bother him too much, but before you know it, you're being carried down the hallway. 2 of the guards have, picked you up under your arms, and they're carrying you. And Hammond's actually in the front, and he's still whistling, kind of twirling his 6 stick. And he's saying, "Big day. Today's the big day."
I think I grunt back. Yeah, every day's a new day, you fucking idiot. Hurt? Oh god.
And Dial and Boomy, you follow the crowd into the cafeteria. The cafeteria is a very plain room. There's rows and rows of tables with little chairs built into the tables. Everyone is lined up along the wall to a station on the end. One of the walls has an open window where they're being served something in a bowl. Everyone's taking their bowls and doing different things. Now, there's actually a lot of people in this cafeteria. And you're all just kind of following everyone, I guess, just standing in line.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And you're standing there not very long. All of a sudden, you notice 4 guards come in the same way that you came in. They are carrying Kaluna under the arms. Kaluna looks very, very sick, very pale. And they don't really try to deposit her very nicely into the room at all. They actually kind of throw her into the room and then go and take up stations around the door, the only entrance and exit to this room. Like with their arms crossed, just watching everyone. But Kaluna, you are sick on the ground.
continue being sick on the ground.
I'm not going to move because I'm afraid that it would kind of cause the guards to go after me.
Boomy's gonna go over to help.
And I think if I catch you coming over, I'm going to try and wave you off. Almost like to say, no, I've got this. This is part of the plan.
You'll just go back.
And peeling off from one of the tables, someone who was seated there, working on their bowl of gruel, it looks like a female walks over to you, but you can't really get many details yet, Cluna, because you're hunched over, just vomiting everything you had in your stomach. But this person puts an arm around you, helps you up, and moves you over to one of the tables and puts you in like one of the small seats. And as they're moving you over, they say, and you can tell it's a female, "Of course, you were always going to take the hard way into this room, weren't you?"
I do what I can to look at their face.
And you turn your head, and this person has sort of long hair that's pulled back into a ponytail, and it looks just like your sister. Although this person also has ridges on their forehead, and then like the rubber attachment on their neck that you have, and then like the shaved bald spots on their temple. But it looks just like Aspen.
Well, I think Kaluna, and out of character, I was also expecting this. I think I'm just gonna play through the motions of being sick just to see what my quote-unquote sister says.
She kind of helps wipe off some of the bile from your face, and she says, "Don't make a scene, Kaluna, because we are being watched. Pretend like everything is normal as it can be here. I know you must be confused. Probably the last thing you remember was on that shuttle, right?"
Now, how would you know about that? Burp.
"Because you were kidnapped. That's why I'm here, you idiot."
Right, so let me get this straight. You're telling me that I was kidnapped by somebody and that you were let out of your cell to come save me? Yeah, I don't think that works quite the way you think it does.
No. Do you have time to hear the story, or have you already drawn your own conclusions?
Why don't you humor me and tell me the story anyway?
So first of all, where are you and what are you doing here? You were kidnapped. Your shuttle was kidnapped. One of the adjoining systems off from the Belladonna system. Apparently, there's this ridiculous race called the Hardroxy. Apparently, they kidnapped your shuttle, and they've taken you here. And this is their way to extract information about the Federation, Starfleet, and what Mercy Station is. And they've brought you here to do that. They're trying to make you question your sanity, thinking they can get all the details out of you that they want once they've broken you. And looking at a crazy place like this, I can't imagine it would take too long. Now, what I'm doing here, your Commander Ebison realized that my past history with Romulans, that I have a little bit of experience with infiltration, and I'd be a friendly face that you would recognize, although maybe miscalculated on that last part.
Right. So, what's the grand plan then?
Well, we're going to get you the hell out of here. You don't want to stay, right?
Well, thank you, Captain Obvious. I knew that much. How about you actually tell me what the plan is to get out of here?
There's a hangar 3 levels down. If you go back through one of the hallways, there's an air duct. And she says, imagine if you're heading back to your cell, you probably passed it. And it's about waist level. It's white just like the rest of the walls, but if you take the air duct down, it's quite a climb, but you'll go down to the hangar. I've managed to procure one of their shuttles. We can use that to get off planet.
Tell me, what class of planet are we dealing with?
Class T for terrible.
Then I think I just sort of fall silent, see if she says anything else, and if she doesn't, I maybe try to get a little bit of food, but I'm not going to push it.
And she says, now, I'm going to go around and act crazy. I know this is going to be a problem for you, but the shuttle I've managed to procure, there's only room for you and me. We can come back for your friends once we're out of here. But with your knowledge of the layout and my brief experience here, we should be able to launch another rescue to get your friends out.
Somehow I find that extremely convenient.
Well, the shuttle's only got room for 2, so I figured if I can get you out, we can deal with the others later. Now, why you think that's convenient? I don't know. I don't have time to play games with you, sister.
I just sort of motion for her to go run along and do whatever.
And she says, try to be there in an hour if you can. I don't know how long I'll be able to keep the shuttle before somebody notices it. And she
I don't
gets
think I comment further. Yeah, I think I just let her get up and go.
Yeah, she gets up and walks away and does like a twitching thing as she walks away. And she says, I'm crazy. I'm crazy. Don't look at me, guards. I'm crazy. And they don't pay her any attention at all. But Dial and Boomy, as you've made your way up to the spot, the window, everyone's getting food, you notice that everyone's getting the same thing. It's a bowl of like grayish, lumpy liquid.
When it lands on my plate, it's like, anything else?
The lady behind the counter looks up at you and she says, "Oh, big day for you, huh? Digitation day. Well, I might have something extra." And she sprinkles what looks like 2 flecks of pepper on it.
Your grace never seems to run out on us. I just move on.
And Boomy, as you make your way up, you're next in line. What catches your attention is in the other corner of the room, there is a lady who is yelling at the wall, and she's yelling very loudly.
Look at her for a moment
And
as I get my food.
she turns, and you kind of recognize her. She looks a lot like Kim Amorous, the head nurse on Ward 7. But again, she looks like all the other people here with the ridges on her head. She doesn't look quite... She definitely doesn't look like a Zach Dorn like she would on Mercy Station. But she's basically facing the wall, yelling at it.
Now, what's she yelling?
She's yelling something like, "Hey, you idiot! Restock the hypo sprays! Restock the hypo sprays! Get me that blood transfusion right now!"
He'll just take note and move along. Sit down with Dial.
Very interesting place, wouldn't you say?
I think poorly managed, actually. Has a number of medicines that they could use to help these people, but they just seem incompetent.
Or unwilling.
Is most likely a possibility as well, considering how much joy the guard gets out of being a bully.
Oh, most authority figures like that position. Power.
I have found that people like that in that position often have never developed proper social skills and never advanced past the primary education system of whatever planet they lived on.
I don't disagree. But it is unfortunately the reality that sometimes people don't make it past that spot.
I do wonder if this is some type of encounter that interrupted our path back to the station, and we're just reliving someone's memories, experiencing what hardships they went through before their digitization.
Possible. Could be that the digitization basically creates essentially an ion storm, and we got caught up in it, and we're reliving essentially a gigantic memory.
Unfortunately, I am not familiar with spatial anomalies all that well. Side effects, yes, but not most of their functions.
I mean, in space, you never really doubt the seemingly impossible because it's somehow probable.
Go look at his food and attempt to eat it.
It's
God,
bland, tasteless.
This is worse than the Academy food. I didn't think it could get worse than that.
But Boomy over Dial's shoulder, you see Kaluna on the at the table by herself.
Just look at Kaluna. Wave her on over. Oh, did we lose Kaluna?
No, it would just help if I wasn't on mute. I think is what it is. No, assuming I see the gesture, I'll come on over and I'll simply sit down and go. All right, so what have we learned?
Oh, well, not much. I assume this is just some projection into our minds.
Well, see, that's the funny thing, is that we see people we recognize. In fact, a specter from my past, and I guess present, appeared and offered me a convenient way out of all this. Now tell me, what would you do in that situation if you were offered a way to escape from this? Would you take it?
I assume this is someone's memory. Like, each of us are living out someone's day, or final day, as it were. So
No. That's the thing, is that my sister was very, very important in mentioning specific details, like the shuttle we were on, certain commanders on the station, where this species supposedly is located, why they captured us. Very convenient lies, don't you see? So I ask again, if you were given a way out like that, would you take it?
Possibly.
Well, if I had my mental abilities, we'd find out the truth. But
yes, and that's the other thing, is that in order for my sister's story to be correct, this species has to have the ability to transmute us from whatever species we were into one of them. Now tell me, based on what we've seen of this species so far, do you think they really have such technology?
No.
And furthermore, do you really think that they'd be able to stop, even if they were able to re-cosmetic our outward appearance, they wouldn't have the technology or the know-how to deal with somebody of your mental capabilities? Looking at Boomy.
Yeah, it's interesting. Things aren't adding up.
Well, the reason I bring this up is very important, it's likely that the closer and closer we get to the end of whatever this is, there's going to be a lot of temptation and a lot of the simulation trying to get us to believe in whatever it is it wants us to believe. The key is to realize this isn't real. It was never real. It never will be real.
Off near the doorway, you notice, Boomy, two of the guards peel off, and they head towards one side of the cafeteria to that young girl that was in your cell. And she looks up. She was eating her food. She looks up very excitedly, like frantically. And she tries to get up and back away, but she doesn't notice the third guard that actually came up from behind her. And they immediately grab her, very much in the way they were carrying Kaluna, but they carry her and she's kicking and screaming. And then Hammond, at the doorway, he says, "Yeah, it's your big day. It's your big day. Time to be digitized." And as they're dragging
Just
her
gonna
away,
watch
she looks over at you. Sorry, go ahead.
We might have lost Shizno. He's been on mute for a while.
But for the other two of you, you notice that Amaros is still yelling very loudly at the wall. And actually, she gets to a point where she starts beating her head literally against the wall. And you notice there's a spot of blood where she's actually started to injure herself. And after one long, forceful hit against the wall, she falls over. And there's a small puddle of blood forming underneath her head. But no one seems to pay it any attention.
I pointed out to Dial and I say, now this is what I mean. The simulation, whatever is behind it, is trying to get us to act in ways that would make us give up secrets, give away our mindset. But again, it's all an illusion. What you're seeing isn't real. It may feel real, and it may be, as far as your brain chemistry is confirmed, real, but it's not.
So, how do we proceed?
Well, there's a few options here. We either continue along the belligerent route, in which we continue to force the simulation to either punish us or give us further information, or we simply rush for the end condition, this digitization process.
And hope that we're not wrong.
Well, if we are wrong, we won't live another or experience another moment of it. So, I guess that's a bright side to all this.
Also true.
But again, I would point out that, do you really think this species has the ability to digitize a mind?
Without warp travel? Probably not.
It just serves no purpose. Why would you want to keep mentally ill patients' brain patterns? It makes zero sense.
Kaluna, if you can give me a display expertise roll, please.
Sure.
Strong hit.
Strong hit.
So an interesting fact about the situation is that you're right. It's strange that they would talk about digitizing a mind, and you did catch a bit of that conversation that Hammond was talking about to Boomy about. He said that some saw it as a form of kindness. That was something that he remarked. So there might be more to digitization. I'm not going to say that word tonight. Than you found out already. So there might be more to it.
Right. And I get a follow-up question or two.
Yep.
Based on what Kaluna knows, not the player knows, of neurological conditions, again, I guess there's that question of what's the value of it. Because he said very important thing here where he said, yes, it's a kindness, but also it's a punishment. But how is punishment also a kindness, but still a pun? You see where that is? There's that disconnect where in one moment he's talking it like it's a punishment, the other he's talking it like a kindness, and it just doesn't add up. There's too many incongruities.
So he thinks, this is talking about Hammond. Hammond thinks that you murdered someone. And there's a lot you don't know about the culture. You don't know capital punishment, if that's something they do. You don't know what the capital punishment is. It could be torture. It could be something even worse. But this Hammond guy is holding this digitization over you as he's taunting you with it. So you don't know exactly what it entails apart from what he's told you. And he says it's like a kindness. So maybe that's better than the alternative for whatever the capital punishment is. Of course, you could be right. The whole thing could just be a sham. But again, there's a lot that you still don't know.
All right, I think Kaluna is, after saying and realizing all this, she's going to double down and go for the belligerent path. So she's going to kind of lean in and whisper to Dial, I'm about to start a very short food fight. Do not get involved. And whatever you do, even if it looks like I'm going to go down, let it happen.
Noted. I'll duck.
Then I take his bowl, because I didn't have a bowl of my own. I get 2 tables away, and then I find the burliest, more muscular, or well-built sort of patience, as it were, and I just cock my arm back and give my best fastball pitch into the back of his head with the bowl.
And the bowl soars, strikes the guy in the back of the head, and he turns to you slowly, Kaluna, and he says, "Oh, Admiral, is that you?"
And I just sort of blink. What? No, that's it? No anger, just, oh, Admiral? Man, I clearly need to watch more prison dramas.
And he stands up, and the gruel is just like dripping down his neck onto his front. And he stands up and he gives you a salute. He says, Admiral, I'm here reporting for duty.
Yes, it's very good. I need you to start a food fight. Consider that an order.
Yes, sir. Right away. Food fight. He turns to the guy next to him. He says, Corporal, orders are to commence food fight immediately. And the corporal seems, if that's actually who this person is ignoring him completely. So what this guy does, the bigger guy, is he takes the bowl that the corporal is eating and pours it on the guy's head. And before you know it, everyone at their little table is throwing gruel at each other.
So, outwardly, Kaluna is not laughing, but inward, she's laughing at the absurdity of all of this. Because again, her goal is to poke the simulation until it breaks. So seeing the simulation try to make up and catch up for her curveballs is highly amusing for her. Because again, she's a neurologist. This is kind of her bread and butter. So she's just sort of making notes for later whenever she has a chance to note all this down.
And beside you, Dial, is Delphia. She's taken a seat next to you. And she says to you, do you still think I'm pretty?
Sure.
She looks at you and she says, no, you don't. I can tell. You're lying. You think
How
she's
would you
prettier
know?
than me.
Oh?
She says,
I
saw how quickly you saw her when she came over. You've been watching her.
That is possible. How would you know?
She says, we were in love. We were going to have a house on a hill. I thought you were special.
Never said I wasn't special.
She starts stomping her hands on her table and she says, tell me that I'm pretty or I'm going to go over to the guard and tell him that your friend is trying to break out.
You're pretty.
She says,
Happy.
you have to tell me, but you have to mean it.
How do you know I didn't mean it then?
It's just because I know you're lying.
You would say I'm lying, even if I was sincere.
And she starts to get up and she says, I'm going to tell the guards it's your friend, and she's pointing at Cluna. I'm going to tell them that your friend's trying to break out.
Where's your proof?
She says, they'll believe me because they know I'm not a liar.
Really? Does anybody believe that you're not a liar? Because I don't know that I would believe you that you're not a liar.
And like a switch, she immediately forgets what she's talking about. She says, ooh, I wonder if they have cherry pie today.
I don't know. You should go ask.
She says, would you like a slice of cherry pie?
If they have one.
And she smiles and kind of pushes the tangle of her hair out of her face. And she says, I'll go ask right away. Do they have cherry pie? That's my favorite.
Well, I managed to avoid that.
And it's very much the same as you all sit here. There's the food fight on the table, as everyone is in that table is, after they've thrown all of their gruel at each other for a while, they kind of get distracted by something else and begin to have a conversation. But the food fight doesn't really go past that table in the way that you were hoping, Cluna. Delphia comes back and forth a few times and repeats the same thing, asking if you think she's pretty, but she usually gets distracted by something else. Then after a while, Hammond makes his way over to the three of you seated. And he's looking around at everyone with a smile on his face, and he's twirling his sick stick. But as he makes the way to the three of you, and he says, today's the big day. How was your last meal?
Fantastic. Quite delicious, actually. They put in some extra stuff for us.
He's looking at you, Boomy, and he says, well, I hope you won't miss your roommate. See, we had to digitize her. She was first on the list.
Oh, then she's the lucky one. Got to go before us.
She was pretty brave, though. She didn't beg. But I'm here to collect you for the administrator. You said you wanted to talk to him. He would love to hear your confession if you have it.
Right, did you let him know that I would like to see my file first? And if everything matches, that we would then discuss the conversation mentioned.
I passed along your requests, but of course the administrator is pretty gracious, I would say. He's willing to put up with your, let's say, your idiosyncrasies on your special day.
Excellent, thank you. Lead the way.
He just stands back and motions to the only way out of the room.
Yeah, I'll get up and follow along.
And what about the rest of you?
Well, I want to know is how's my food fight going? Is it just the one table?
It's just the one table. They kind of forgot what they were doing after a minute.
Well, as they reset to normal, I note that down and return to see Boomy getting led away, and I say to Dial, well, some other useful tidbit that I've noticed is that apparently the simulation resets about every minute or 2 minutes, meaning that no matter what curveball you throw, it's going to find some way to return it to normal within a few minutes.
Which means these are the simulation or whatever that we're in only has a limited amount of information on each person that it puts on repeat.
Like a minor holodeck character that doesn't really have a personality, they're just a background person, as it were.
Right, few lines of dialogue, and that's all it is. They're a flat character.
Exactly.
But Hammond stops. He doesn't let you get too far, Boomy. And in fact, you're still within earshot of Dial and Cluna. And he points to Amaros on the ground. Like she still has a puddle of blood under her head, and he says to you, Boomy, "So you say you're a doctor. I'll make a deal with you. If you can cure her, I'll let you go. Open the door myself."
Cure her what exactly? Treat her for the injury or her disorder?
Yes.
Well, then I would need access to medicine.
Sounds to me like you're talking about a bunch of ways you can't do what you've said you could do. You said you're a doctor. You can heal people, bring them back from the grave. They're dead. What about her?
Well, if she's suffering from multiple personality disorder, I would need access to Lexloxerin. It would help with malaise and also multiple personality disorder. I could also have an examination of her to see exactly what's causing it. If it is external stimuli or if it's internal. If there is something wrong, I would have to have access to my tricorder, biobed, number of equipment.
So there's nothing you can do for her.
There's a lot I could do for her as long as I have the right equipment.
But you won't even examine her before you've decided there's nothing you can do. Some doctor.
I could examine her right now, but it would only be superficial. It would be surface level. I would need to do a further in-depth scan if I really want to help her. If I started the process, would you allow me access to the equipment? This is, after all, a asylum, and it should have a medical facility with medicines, equipment, scanners.
He's kind of looking at you with a smile, and he says, "We'll see."
Yes, are you going to allow this?
And he looks to you, Dial and Clune, and he says, "What about you two? Can't you help her at all? Show me you're a doctor. Show me that one bit of your story was true."
I pick up Boomy's ball and throw it at Hammond. Like I said, the belligerent route.
While you do that, I just will be reiterating what my companion here said. Well, there's only so much we can do without any materials. We could makeshift something, but we don't have access to any kind of medications to do anything, even stop the bleeding. At this point, she's been concussed long enough, considering that I look at in probably an invisible watch on my hand. She's been out cold, knocked out in this state for probably close to 15 minutes. There's no, she's concussed herself in limited brain activity. We would need some sort of scan to figure out where the activity is still active, and if there's any brain bleeds that we need to immediately take care of that can help assist the brain in re-establishing blood flow, which would then re-oxygenate the blood. But we have no access to any of that.
And it's probably about that time where Hammond gets a face full of gruel, and he doesn't even pause a beat before he hits you again, Cluno, with a six stick. And you like twist over. There's nothing more to throw up because I don't think that you even ate very much. And you're doing like a dry heave. Your body is just shaking, just trembling from the nausea. But I'm curious, Boomy and Dial, what are you doing as you see Kaluna just in intense pain?
Oh, I'm not going to move. I'll probably just keep on like, well, if we had our materials, we could do this and this and this and this and this, but we don't have anything, so we need this and this and this and this and this.
I really wish I had my telepathic abilities.
Kaluna, as you're bent over, Hammond actually kicks you very hard in the chest.
All right.
And he says, "On your big day, too. What a shame."
It's such a big day. Then why don't you get it over with? Or are you not enough of a man to take me down to the chamber yourself? You have to get one of your flunkies to do it.
And more of the guards are approaching around all of you. And he says, well, you've got a date with the administrator first, but I promise you, princess, I'll strap you in myself. And the two guards walk behind you, Cluna, and pick you up. And Hammond heads for the door, and he looks to you, Dial and Boomy, and he says, well, let's go.
He's just gonna look at the Cluna for a moment and then look at the individual on the floor that was concussed. Alkazine, for the treatment of for the head trauma there, that'll help with any neurological damage. And then you'd want to administer a cortical analeptic to help regenerate any of the damaged tissue. And if you have the equipment, a CPK enzymatic therapy that'll help reduce the damage of any further ongoing issue, allow her body to naturally heal. Sufficient enough.
And he doesn't seem, this is Hammond, he doesn't seem to care at all of what you're saying. But as the guards are dragging you away, Cluna, Hammond, he's kind of looking to you, Boomy and Dial, and he says, let's go.
He'll follow along.
Yeah, follow.
And as you're being dragged down the hallway, Cluna, it's going on for a while around the bend of the hallway, and you go past several cells where you hear people, crying out and everything. And you get to a point where you actually see, coming up on your left, the grate that was described by Aspen. And you realize that if you wanted to try to get into that grate, like actually get away, this would have to be your moment, because it's right here.
Nope. I'll go for it.
You said you will go for it, or you won't?
No,
Okay.
definitely not.
But as you're all walking down the hallway, Hammond leads you to a small hallway off to the side, past those metal doors that you were stopped at before, Cluna, and into another set of rooms, and then through one doorway into the office of the administrator. And seated behind a fairly smallish wooden desk is another one of the species that has been throughout this entire installation. This individual, he's a little bit shorter than everyone else, but he has even shorter hair than the rest of, say, that first doctor that you saw, Boomy. It looks like he has skin that's sagging a bit off of his face, and he has large bags under his eyes, and his eyes are also very bloodshot. As you're walking in, he has his fingers together, and it looks like he's reading something on his desk, but he looks up as you enter, and you all see that his fingers are very long and skinny, and he has long, skinny fingernails. But he doesn't even stand up from his desk at all as you're all brought in. And Hammond just, kind of motions to his people, and they drop you onto the floor, Cluna. But you, Boomy, and Dial are motioned around to stand in front of his desk. And he says, well, I've been told that you have something you'd like to talk about. And he's saying this to you, Boomy.
Well, first I would like to see my file.
To what end?
If I am suffering a psychotic episode, as I've been told, I would like to confirm what is in the file, and if it confirms what you all have been saying, then I will confess. But if it doesn't, then I know I'm right.
He looks to you, Dial, and Clune on the floor, and he says, what about you two? Will you also confess?
Is there anything on the floor that could be thrown at the administrator? Because again, belligerent.
There's not.
Am I wearing shoes?
You are wearing shoes, yep.
Well, bye-bye shoe number one.
As you go to take your shoe off, you have a great angle under the desk, Cluna, and you can see there's a metal plaque, a small metal plaque on the bottom side of the desk. It looks like something like a manufacturer or someone that, put the desk together, put the stamp on it as like their mark. And on the desk it says, property of the Mercy Asylum for the Criminally Insane.
A cute detail, but it's one I'm going to keep to myself. Because, yeah, as soon as that shoe's off, I don't know if you've ever seen the viral video of the slap, but people are going to get slapped with soles of shoes, starting with the administrator.
Are you going to throw the shoe at him, or are you going to try to slap him with the shoe?
No, like literally across his desk, just going to slap him.
Because it's hilarious, let's do a show contempt roll, please.
Oh, perfect. Wait, show contempt. There it is. I miss, apparently. I miss very badly.
Actually, a miss is good for show contempt. Yeah, miss is good. A hit is bad.
Oh, that's right. It's one of those reverse ones.
The reverse ones. So you can ask two questions.
I was going to say, I think I already know the answer to are you telling the truth? No matter what he says, I'm not going to believe it. Where is the character vulnerable? Where is the administrator vulnerable?
I'll say, are you telling the truth? He thinks he's telling the truth. If that's useful. Where is he vulnerable? When you slap him with a shoe, it doesn't seem to bother him at all. He comes back and he says, I understand it's your last day, so I'm going to give you that one for free. And he motions to Hammond.
I slap him again. I don't even let him get out the rest of the words. I slap him again.
You slap him again. Hammond grabs you and restrains you. And you've been hit twice with a stick, so you are very ill. There's just nothing to throw up.
Third time's a charm, right?
Yeah. So the administrator, he straightens his very perfect suit. It's closely manicured to his body, and he reaches into his desk, and he pulls out a display, and he activates a few keys on it, and he hands the display to you, Boomy, and he says, I believe this is what you are looking for.
Yeah, I'll start looking through it.
And it's a video. And the video is playing, and it shows the three of you breaking into someone's house, like a family of four, and it shows the three of you violently killing them.
This isn't what I asked for. I asked for my file. I wanted to know what my profession was before this. Know my history. Family.
He says, that information is expunged upon you entering this hospital. You have already been tried and convicted. Your history does not matter. The only thing that matters at this point is if you will confess.
It does matter, if especially since you take so much care and concern to upload someone's mind into a computer. You're essentially saving their history. So why would you expunge it?
We see the saving of your memory as a kindness.
But yet deleting my information and my history is not a kindness.
You will be erased from society. Your memory will be there as a protection for your soul.
Well, I'm not erased from society if my mind is being saved. I'm still part of it.
The general population will not have access to your memories. You will be filed away into a remote corner of a computer database.
But yet I would still remain. So, your policy is contradictory.
The administrator rises from his desk and he walks around and he does the whole steeple thing with his fingers, and he says, accidents have happened, of course, in digitization. Memories have been lost.
Again, it's contradictory. You value these memories to save them, as you say, but yet you make a loose threat to lose mine. what point does this serve
And he looks
if
to
there
you.
is so little care in preserving these memories?
He says, I will give you one last chance to confess. Think of it as a redemption for you against the terrible murders against this family. A way to show that you have remorse for your actions. If you were to confess, then perhaps the digitization process would be less painful.
You said he's next to me, GM?
Yeah, he's standing in front of you.
And the other guy is dealing with Kaluna right now.
There's probably a total of 4 guards in the room. One of them, Hammond, is restraining Kaluna. The other 2, or the other 3, are close by.
How close by? Like arm's length close by?
Yeah.
This is just a whole farce and a sham. You say that you want to preserve memories, but yet it's not so secure that accidents can happen. You delete information, but yet claim to save the person's essence. This just all feels false.
I was hoping we would get a confession. He looks to you, Dial. What about you? You've been quiet. The other two have sealed their fate, but there's still a chance for you.
Seems to me that you have already sealed our fates.
He sighs. So be it. There was a small chance, but I was hoping you would do the right thing. And he looks to Ham and he says, take them away. Digitization immediately. And he turns and walks back to his desk. The guards go and they grab you, Dial, and they also grab you, Boomy, and of course you're being dragged by Hammond out, Kaluna. And the administrator doesn't even look up from whatever thing he was reading before as they drag you back to the hallway. And as they're pulling you, all 3 of you down the hallway towards a different part of the hospital, you're going past all the different rooms where you can see different patients crying and do whatever they're doing in their rooms. As you pass Delphia's room, Dial, you hear her saying just to herself, he said I'm pretty. I must be pretty. I know I'm pretty. I'm going to have a house on the hill. Boomy, you see Deleuze, and he's saying, if I cut out my eyes, you won't be disappointed in me. Nope. Then I can't do anything wrong if you can't see me. But eventually, they get to a examination room very much like the one that you woke up in, Boomy. And there are 3 beds here. And the guards begin to throw each of you onto the beds and start to restrain you with the restraints.
I do have one thing to say
And
before all of this is done.
the guard says, the last thing you'll say in your entire existence, what would that be?
These beds are rather uncomfortable.
And Hammond laughs and he says, I think I'll handle the machines today. And as you're all restrained, he's walking kind of back and forth between the 3 of you, and he walks to you, Clune, and he says, now typically, we would give an injection to reduce the pain, but I think in your case, I'm going to forget about that today.
I spit in his face.
It doesn't seem to faze him. As he
As
walks over
expected.
and attaches these diodes to each of your temples. And he throws a switch, and you are all 3 in intense, incredible pain. And the pain continues, and you begin to lose consciousness. and your consciousness comes back, and it looks as though you are perhaps on Mercy Station, the station that you remember, but you're all three in different biobeds.
First thing I'm doing is I'm feeling that with my mind.
You can scan the immediate area. You detect probably 5 different life forms, but when you start to do that, you get a headache, and immediately some sort of alarm next to you goes off, and walking over is Captain Azato, the chief of staff of the entire hospital. She's wearing, it looks like a medical jumpsuit, and she walks over and she puts her hand on your arm and she says, "Doctor, I wouldn't do that for a while if I were you."
I wanted to make sure I was still a alien.
She says, "Yes." And that has actually been the source of all of our problems. And dialing Cluna, as you all kind of stir and lift your heads from your beds, from the beds you see Deleuze and Amoros in their normal uniforms, in no distress at all, going back and forth with tricorders, scanning all of you and stuff.
What happened?
Azato, she says, "The three of you, why don't you just take a rest for a minute, and we'll talk about that in a minute. You've had quite an ordeal. For a while, we didn't know if you were going to make it."
We were just experiencing something rather gruesome. I'd rather know what happened now.
She says, "Okay, that's understandable. Apparently, Doctor," and she's saying to you, Boomy, "your contact with the Gomtu creature was very traumatic for your telepathic faculties. Immediately after leaving the creature back on a shuttle, your mind went into we don't really know exactly how to categorize it, sort of an episode, I guess, and you projected intense telepathic thoughts into everyone inside the shuttle. The only person that didn't seem to be very affected was Mr. Ebbison. I have a feeling it's because he wasn't as acquainted with you. But from what we can tell, you were projecting all of your anxieties into your other 2 crewmates," and she motions to you, Cluna and Dial. And she says, "Or at least perhaps triggering theirs. You were in, all 3 of you, a telepathically induced coma, to the point to where your brain functions were actually in danger."
Okay, let's put that aside for a second. How were we all sharing the same thing? And furthermore, it was a memory or an experience of individuals I've never encountered. The species I've never heard of.
Well, Doctor, I'm afraid I can't really answer that. I don't know much about your own telepathic projections, but I can only imagine perhaps it was something in a dream or something you'd imagined.
There's no way I'd imagine a world like that.
Well, that's the funny thing, is that the mind can be a very dark and terrible place if you go into the recesses of it. Does anybody have a pad? I need to get as much of this detail down as possible. This will make for a fascinating report in the neurological magazine.
And Amaros walks over and she says, "We have detailed information on your scans. Now exactly what you saw, that's between the 3 of you, we don't know. Apparently it caused quite a deal of stress in your systems, though."
Well, that's why I need the pad. I need to make sure I get all the details down before they're lost into the ether.
And Julie says, "Also, Doctor, I took detailed tricorder scans. I would hate to disappoint you."
I look at them extremely critically for a moment, as if wondering if this is reality or if this is the dream within a dream. I don't think there's a role required for that, but I just say, very good. I still need that pad, though.
And Amaros has handed it to you. And as she hands you the pad, you notice on the back of the pad, there is also another small metal plaque detailing where the pad was replicated. And it says, "Property of Mercy Hospital, Starfleet Medical."
Okay, out of character. I want to make sure that this is correct. It's Mercy Station, not Mercy Hospital, correct?
Mercy. I think I've called it Mercy Hospital before.
Okay, because I was gonna say, from what I remember, it was stationed, but I wanted to make sure it was not an in-character thing that I messed up. Okay. Yeah, I'm not getting vibes that this is a dream within a dream, so I'm just gonna start noting down everything I can about the experience.
Some time passes by, and you all don't, as far as you can tell, this is reality. There's no other vision or anything like that. I'm just gonna drop you all into. It's super fun. For our last scene for tonight. So you've all been given the day off basically by Captain Azato as she and the staff have kind of covered for you. And you've all made your way to Greeks to get a meal. And as you're kind of waiting in line to get your meal, I just give you some time to catch up from what you all just went through.
Boomy's just looking over a pad of the scans of him and everyone else that was affected.
Well, Mr. Boomy, what do you think about all this?
Hell, I'd like to think that my consciousness and subconscious aren't that dark and twisted. The only thing I can assume, though, is, and he's going to pull up another pad, he's like, from the information of the first meeting with this Gum2-like species, it was referenced by a Commander Data that the individual said that the entity was able to share information and memories with him of its former crew members. I'm thinking maybe something like that happened. Maybe one of the crew members, or maybe all of them, had either came from a world much like that, or they just had a very active imagination, or the creature misunderstood their own thought processes. I don't know. I don't particularly like the idea that it came all from my mind.
Well, that's the thing. My understanding, based on these scans, is that it was a shared hallucination. You were simply the focal point. So it could be that this is a ghost of one of our pasts, or maybe the lingering subconscious trying to process a holo novel or a holodeck program proper that one of us has experienced. Though I've not been able to place the species, I'm not quite sure what it was. But no, your notion that this is something to do with Gum2 trying to share crew experiences, I don't think a creature like that would have had crew anything like what we experienced.
It's a bit of amalgamation of all of their personalities. It's hard to say. It's just that, again, I can't see my subconscious being like this. First and foremost, I'm a healer. Always have been.
Well, the subconscious works in strange ways. In some ways, you probably had no control over it. Think of it like a power surge. If something overloads, there's no telling what it'll do.
That's the other thing, too. When we experience trauma, usually the telepathic center gets scarred and shuts down until it's healed. Apparently, I just broadcast.
I'm gonna say depends on when the trauma happened and what part of the brain was active. I've ran into students that when they experience trauma, that's the part of the brain that becomes hyperactive, creating their own world. In a way, that's kind of what we just did.
The fact that a species is made up in a whole world is troubling.
Well, if you
Maybe
want,
something.
I can schedule some therapy for you and we can talk about it in depth.
I'm still under the assumption that something else was out there with us.
Well,
The
as far as I've
streams
been able to,
crossed.
as convenient as an answer that might be, Mr. Boomy, I've seen nothing in the logs that would indicate that such a thing is possible. I think, one way or another, you have to accept the reality that there's more going on in your brain than you care to know.
Well, as a good young doctor said to me, nothing's impossible, especially in this type of galaxy. So, just because we couldn't scan it.
Well, for all you know, you were interacting with the thing that we were inside of.
Terrifying thought.
Oh, there is one final thing. And feel free to decline to answer, but in that moment, right before the switch was thrown and the quote-unquote digitization process occurred, would you say that you were terrified, bemused? What was the emotion going through your mind?
Because I didn't have access to my telepathy and I didn't feel that I was changed or felt that I was hallucinating my whole entire life and existence as a Yilian, I was neutral.
Neutral. And you, Dr. Dial?
Terrified and excited?
Excited. That's a good word.
Terrified of what was happening, but excited for the unknown?
Fascinating.
If that makes sense?
Oh, it does. It does indeed. Quite fascinating. And then Klula just sort of grabs a piece of food and starts chewing on it as she makes final notes. And you would see if you looked at her pad that she's getting ready to send off the entire experience, not just to her supervisor, but also for whatever we're calling the psychologist or psychiatrist weekly publication by Starfleet, whatever that is, sending that in for perusal kind of a thing.
And where we will close up for tonight is as you're all just sitting there silently doing your thing, you notice Delphia walk into Greek's dial, and she walks over to the bar and she's getting something to eat, and someone sitting next to her, one of the other officers, says something to her, and she says laughingly, and you all pick it up, and she says, "Why, thank you. I think today I do feel pretty